Hello, everybody. I'm really excited as I am here today with the ABC video series with attorney Michael Monteforte from Monteforte Law PC, and they are located in Woburn. And for those of you who do not know Mike, he's going to be introducing himself, but he is just a wealth of knowledge. He is an amazing partner and just a phenomenal elder law attorney. And so I'm really excited to be able to share a lot of great information with all of you today. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Mike to introduce himself. Thank you so much, Mike, for being on again today. I really appreciate it.
No, this is awesome, Michelle. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. So like you said, my name is Mike Monteforte. I have an estate planning and elder law firm in Woburn, Mass. We practice exclusively in estate planning, elder planning. We do kid planning and special needs planning. And those are the areas that my firm focuses on. We have 3 attorneys other than me, and we have 2 paralegals and some other support staff. And God, I've been at this for 20 plus years now. Don't tell anyone. I don't want anyone guessing my age. I appreciate you having me on because I love to talk about this stuff. I'm passionate about it. I love to educate people about it, and getting to talk about these things, usually those are the best parts of my day. So thanks for having me as a guest. I appreciate it.
And I'm sure that everyone is looking forward to hearing from you. And certainly I know how passionate you are, right? We've worked together for, a couple of years now. And, you and I, whenever we get talking, it's always kind of the same underlying factor that comes up, and it's why. Our why, right? Why do we do what we do? And I know for me it's my grandmother, right? She's my guiding force. And so I would love for you to just explain to folks, really, how did you start your journey in your career as an elder law attorney? Because it is a very specific line of work, and I think people forget about that because they think, okay, well, yeah, estate plan and elder law attorney, like, oh, okay, well, it's the same, but it's really not. So I'd love for you to just go into why you're so passionate and kind of the differences of why an elder law attorney is different than general estate planning.
My why. I tell people, elder law and estate planning, I didn't choose it, it chose me. Or maybe fate chose me for it. And, it was a field that I always had an interest in. But when I first started out as a lawyer and I worked for a general practice firm, then when I opened my own firm, it was a general practice firm. I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do and what my place in the world was. And for good or ill, I guess that's where fate stepped in because my grandfather got sick. And you and I have talked about this before because we both had grandparents that were very influential in our lives. My grandparents were a huge part of my life. They still are, even though they're not with us anymore. I think of them daily. But my grandfather got sick. He started to exhibit symptoms of dementia. Started with some memory loss, which took a while for everybody to kind of wrap their heads around and admit. We started looking at, okay, what's next? And she was the one that made the decision about moving them into an assisted living facility. I had my family looking at me, they're looking, saying, what do we do? And at the time, however many years this was now, 20 years ago, my honest answer at that point, I don't know. And I quickly followed that up with, but I'll find out. The family was concerned about my grandparents basically spending their lives on my mother's care. And again, looking to me for answers. I didn't have them at the time. And I said, okay, I need to help them. These would have done absolutely anything in the world for me if I needed help. And I said, this is how I'm going to give back to them. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to learn everything I can about elder law and elder planning, and I'm going to use that information to help them and help them figure this out. And so I'm taking every class, I'm reading every book, I'm doing every education. I'm going to do everything I can to learn how to do this. And that's how I got And with the information that I gained from going through all this training, I was able to provide some assistance to my grandparents and my family. Most of my family members, my mom and her sisters, they don't know the options. They don't know where to start, right? They don't know that there are people like you out there that can help them coordinate and evaluate the type of care is needed. They just don't know where to begin and we're overwhelmed. And that sense of overwhelm can freeze people. And they say, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. And they panic. And being able to help my family and kind of carry that weight and let them all breathe a little easier was super rewarding, number one. And number two, it taught me that, hey, wait a minute, there are lots of people out there that need this help, that are in the exact same position that my mom and her sisters and my grandmother or my grandparents were in, didn't know what to do, didn't know where to begin. And I said, there's a way for me to help these people. And so I decided at that point that I was going to make changes at my firm. I cut out all the other practice areas and I practice exclusively in these fields. The rules are ever changing, right? It's constantly evolving. And in order to be good at this, you really have to keep up with it. And because it's always changing and always moving around, I tell people it's very hard to be great at this and then great at another field of law because this requires so much attention. So this is what I do. And I look at it as, again, started with helping them. And once they passed on, I look at it as a way that hopefully somehow, some way I'm making them proud still, when they see me helping people that were in this situation.
When people are looking to hire anyone, right? Whether it's an attorney, whether it's a home care company, no matter what you're doing, I always love to ask, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? Because undoubtedly someone with the amount of passion and knowledge that you have and genuinely the life experience, right? Like you experienced it. You can speak to that. You understand when clients are coming into your office, you understand how they're feeling and how stressful it can be. So I totally admire you for that. Like I said, you're a wealth of knowledge. We're so lucky to be able to work with you. And, I'm looking forward to hearing from you today too, Mike. Speak on the, specifically the roles that people should be thinking of casting when they are doing their estate planning. Because a lot of people, when they think of estate planning, they say, oh, okay, like making sure that my assets are taken care of. And maybe they're educated on what a trust is. And they think, oh, okay, well, there it is. I'm safe. But realistically, when you're planning for elder care, there are so many aspects of that planning process. And a lot of them don't know the certain roles that there are. Like I know myself, like a power of attorney or a healthcare proxy. And I'm sure there's a couple more that you might be able to speak to, but can you just kind of give, our clients and prospective clients that are watching this, can you give them kind of an overview of some of the big key roles and who best they should cast for those roles?
Sometimes I refer to these roles as hats, wearing different hats. And I'll kind of go over that. And sometimes I can have one person that wears more, times we can't. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And, one of the things that you had mentioned previously as well was, well, there's estate planning attorneys and there's elder law attorneys and there's some overlap there, but they're not exactly the same. And you're correct about that. To be an elder law attorney, yes, it requires a mastery of estate planning, but it requires an additional knowledge and training that all estate planning attorneys don't have, because elder law really is a field in and of itself. There are rules and regulations and laws that apply specifically to seniors, especially when it comes to things like long-term care. And when we're talking about benefits through Medicaid, Social Security, Medicare, a lot of those things only apply to people over a certain age. And estate planning attorneys that don't take that next step to learn about, okay, what elder law is and how it applies to clients of theirs, don't have that specified knowledge that's required to advise our seniors properly, not because of any, fault or lack of intelligence, but without going through the training, because it really is a separate thing. So yes, I'm an estate planning attorney, but I'm an elder law attorney as well. And not all estate planning attorneys are. And part of my job is to advise people on these roles. Like you mentioned, we've got roles like you've already said, power of attorney, healthcare proxy. I can touch briefly on what those things are. And then I can talk about some of the additional roles as well, advisors and other people that assist, especially when we're talking about seniors, regardless of where they are in their life, whether someone needs long-term care or doesn't need long-term care. There are pieces that fit together like a jigsaw puzzle when we're talking about estate planning, especially for elders. Most of our plans start with what we call our big three trusts, for example. And I look at those things as kind of spokes on that wheel, but we have to start with the base and have that ready to go and it done properly first before we start worrying about adding on these additional things. So our big three, I mentioned the last will and testament. Most people know what a will is. In its simplest terms, a will is a list of instructions that says, do this with my stuff when I die, right? And we're naming somebody to basically follow those instructions for us, okay? And under modern Massachusetts law, that person's called a personal representative, but in the past, we always referred to that as an executor. In my conversation, I use executor most of the time because that's the term that people know. This individual that we're naming to follow the instructions that we've laid out in our will. When I die, do this with my stuff, A, B, C, and D. And it's the personal representative's job to follow those instructions and do that A, B, C, and D like I listed out. So maybe we're giving property, maybe we're giving money, maybe we're leaving our house to somebody. Whatever the case may be, we lay it out in our documents, and it's a personal representative's job to follow those instructions. So that's one role, right? So that's what someone can be wearing, their personal representative hat, their PR hat, we call it sometimes. What happens in situations where, hey, maybe we're not dead yet, but we've got someone that's dealing with some sort of disability like a dementia or an Alzheimer's or a stroke or another hospitalization, where we've got someone that, whether permanently or temporarily, is unable to make decisions for themselves for a time. Well, now what do we do? Well, we can't look to their will because the person's still alive. And as long as they're still breathing, the will legally doesn't mean anything. So now what do we do? Well, that's where the other two pieces of our big three into play. So first document, and you had mentioned it before, is the durable power of attorney. And that document is basically, it's a stack of paper that says, if I'm unable to make decisions for myself, I'm naming someone to make those decisions for me. All right. That person is sometimes called our power of attorney, is sometimes called our attorney in fact, sometimes called our agent. There are different names for the same thing, but it's basically allowing you to name someone that says, if I can't make these financial decisions for myself, I can't go to the bank, I can't call my insurance company, I'm not in a position where I can do that right now, then this document gives someone else the power to do that on my behalf. Now, this same person can wear both hats. They can be your personal representative and they can be your power of attorney. So I can give both these hats to one person if I want to, but it's not required. I can give them to two completely different people if I want to. Then that third piece of our big three deals with healthcare, all right? If I am unable to make decisions for myself about my care and someone needs to step in and make those decisions for me, then I name that person using my healthcare proxy document. All right. A healthcare proxy document names somebody to fill this role, make decisions for me if I can't do it on my own, if I'm unable to do it. And that person is sometimes called a healthcare agent. Sometimes we call them a healthcare proxy. And again, this is a different hat. So this is a third role. And lots of people ask us again, okay, can I have one person for all three of these hats? Yes, you definitely can. When we've got a case of a married couple and say both members of a married couple are healthy, a lot of times people will name their spouse and they'll give their spouse all three hats. And that's okay, totally fine. But what if something happens to our spouse? Well, these documents allow us to name a backup person as well. So if my spouse can't wear this hat, either because they've passed on or because they're unable to due to a disability or some other health, well, I'm naming a backup person who can step in and wear that hat instead. And again, can be the same person wearing all the hats, or it can be somebody that's completely different. So when we're looking at something like a power of attorney, someone that's got to manage our money for us, if we can't do it, we like to name someone that has some experience dealing with money, somebody that's smart and organized, is going to be able to know how to use and invest money on our behalf.
Right.
And that person might be completely different from someone that you name as your healthcare proxy. And so these roles, what we're looking for, who we're looking for to wear these hats doesn't have to be the same person. That's okay. We're looking at the qualities that these people have, right? So whenever we're putting a plan together and we start with our big three, those are the roles that we have to dole out that go along with kind of the base of our plan. And then if we add things like trusts, and I could talk to you for 6 hours about trusts. I won't get into too many details here about trusts and how they work. But a lot of times, if we're putting a trust together, and there are hundreds of different reasons why we might have one, we've got to name someone to run the trust for us when we pass on. That person is called a trustee. And again, yet another hat, right? So a trustee hat might be the same person that's wearing the other hats, might be somebody completely different, depending on what type of assets are in the trust, whether it's cash, real estate, all those things are going to affect who we hand that trustee hat to as well. All right. And so each of those people are part of our estate plan that we're doing and wearing the hats that we're giving out. But then there are other hats that we give out that don't necessarily become part of our plan, but deal with advisors and other aspects of our lives. So for example, Michelle, folks that do what you do, right? I can talk to you all day about the legal, but what I cannot do is I can't tell you what the appropriate type of care that your loved one needs, right? I stay in my own lane. I'm not trained to do that. So when I meet with clients and I say, okay, I'm qualified to help you give these hats out, you need somebody else that's qualified to give out your hats when it comes to healthcare, whether, again, we're recommending in-home care, facility-based care, whatever the case may be. You need folks that do what you do, Michelle, to deal with making sure someone gets the highest level of care and the appropriate level of care. Clients ask me about it all the time, and I say, okay, that's when we need to pivot, and we need to go over here, and Michelle can help you give those hats out because I can't.
Right.
And at the same time, we may also recommend things like a CPA or a financial advisor or a life insurance agent. And those are additional hats where, again, we're bringing in another advisor to help us in different aspects of a client's plan. And we have colleagues, Michelle, that we work regularly with that we bring in those situations.
I mean, honestly, it's so great because I think that it goes really well with what I call here at ABC, the care continuum. And I've created that term because, you've got one client, right? But it really does take a village to care for one person, especially as they advance in life and their conditions change and they age. So it's not just, okay, here I work in home care. It's not just that. It's a multitude of things. So many specialists have to be brought together to be able to give the best care. So I guess my question, Mike, which might be a question for some of the folks listening here today, is so if they give their hats away and they assign their daughter to do one thing, a son to do another, a cousin to do one thing. What happens if at some point the people that have been assigned to wear the hats disagree?
And that does happen from time to time. Every family is. The way that we design our plans is I want them to both act as my power attorney together. And then, okay, what if they disagree? Well, we have to build that into the document. And it's really up to the client and what the client wants. Well, my daughter's older, so if it comes down to a disagreement, I want them to have her choose. Some people say, well, if it's a disagreement, I want a third party that we're going to name to step in and choose. So we really customize these documents. They're not one size fits all. And we work through that with the client based on their family to help determine, okay, for lack of a decision maker, or if there's a disagreement, what's next? Who's going to come in and decide, or who's going to be the tiebreaker? Sometimes they ask me to do it when it's, money types of decision. But things like healthcare, it's not appropriate for me to be the tiebreaker on a healthcare decision. That's more for family and people that are close to you, because it's up to them what they want to happen.
Excellent. No, that's great. And it totally makes sense. The other thing, as we're nearing the end of our time here, the other thing that I'd like to, just have you shed some light about is a lot of people tend to think, oh, well, I'm not there yet. I don't have to worry about it. Right. And my message is always, the earlier you plan, the better off you are. So can you kind of provide your take on that? And then also the importance of, even if you do have something in place, the importance of revisiting that every so often, just to make sure that everything's kosher.
That's because the plans that you make ahead of time before you need them, especially when it comes to things like long-term care. The time to do this stuff is when everybody's healthy and prior an immediate need for long-term care. Now, when we've got someone that has an immediate need for long-term care, there are tools we can use, and all is not lost. There are still things we can do, but those tools are nowhere near as good as the tools we can use if we plan ahead, right? So planning early while everyone's healthy, that's the key. And then you had mentioned review of these documents. We tell our clients that they should be looking at these documents at least once a year. They should be talking to their elder law and estate planning attorney, if not once a year, at least every other year. We recommend that they talk to us once a year. I tell people, pull a plan out of the drawer, take a look at it, look at the names of the people that you assign these hats to. Are they all still alive? Did any of them move away? They moved overseas. They're in a different time zone. It's not convenient for them to take action on your behalf anymore. Then we need to update that. So people that think that their planning is done and put it in the drawer and never look at it again, and 20 years go by and then we need it and pull it out. Those are the cases when I see that we've named people that may not even be alive anymore, or just aren't the appropriate person anymore for that to serve. And the other thing that happens, like I mentioned, laws change all the time. So you should be checking in with your attorney at least once a year. What about the law and the rules and the regulations? Has anything changed there? And a good estate planning attorney that you talk to once a year is going to tell you, nope, everything's fine. Put it back, put it away. I'll talk to you next year. Or, no, there are some rules and regulations that have changed and they require some tweaks to your documents in order to get the most out of them. So these things do have to evolve over time. They have to change with you as your life changes in order for them to be effective.
And I can agree with that wholeheartedly, because even with home care, right? Someone could start their home care journey with just having someone come over the house to do some laundry down in the basement or whatever. And, it might not always stay that way. Their condition may require more care. Or like I always tell folks, if you have home care, it doesn't mean that it has to be forever. It certainly can be. And we can evolve with you, but it's really about just, an honest assessment of yourself, your condition, and how you're doing, in order to really say, okay, do I need more or less in order to be able to live safely and independently at home? In closing, I appreciate this so much. We have 2 minutes left, but I appreciate you coming on. I think this has been amazing because I just you going into these scenarios have helped me kind of think of things a little bit clearer. And I know for the clients and prospective clients watching this, I'm sure this is super helpful. So my message to everyone is if you have any questions, if you're confused, or if you want someone to take a look at an estate plan that you already have, Mike is your guy. Give him a call. I know I've dealt with you guys for so long. Your office is amazing, super supportive, and just a real positive experience. And so, Mike, I want to hand it back over to you.
So our main office is in Woburn, Mass. We're in the Trade Center building in Woburn, Mass. It's 300 Trade Center in Woburn is the address. We just opened a satellite office on the other side of the city in Norwell, Mass. And we have an amazing, very experienced attorney that's staffing that office. And we just finished the kind of finishing touches on that. So we're open for business there. So for people that are on the other side of Boston that don't want to drive through the city to get to Woburn, they can go to the Norwell office instead. Our phone number is 978-657-7437. But for people that want to learn information, go to our website. It's montefortelaw.com. There are tons of free resources available there. My books are available for free there for download. You can request copies for free. And we've got tons of other educational materials there that you can obtain at no cost, no obligation, and help kind of educate yourself on this stuff.
Thank you so much, Mike. We have less than a minute, and I just want to thank you again for being on and for being a great partner. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. Thanks.
ABC Home Healthcare, committed to life at home.
Call 781-245-1880.